The Hedge Swordsman here. It's August 15th, 2025. First of all, thanks to the sponsors. Consider me biased. This is not investing advice. I've been traveling a bit lately. I did put out a video maybe a week ago or something. But it's been pretty busy trying to enjoy the summer as well. One thing to note now, I mean, we're in a very interesting time, and I posted some stuff about this on Twitter, where we have the fact that obviously we had a vacation period, holiday period, where people are away from the computer. People might actually, let's say, needing to sell stock to pay for their trip to wherever, and people kind of enjoying life, especially, of course, in the northern hemisphere, which is, I guess, where most investors live who participate in the mining sector. So we have this thing where, kind of like, non-positive news, or yeah, I would say non-positive news to varying degrees tend to be released on Friday. Stuff that's like where you don't necessarily want to have the most amount of people looking at it. That tends to be released on Fridays after close. And that could be whatever, financings, options, bad real results, yada yada yada. Because most people have already gone home. There's no, well, obviously, if the market is closed, you can't even react, and then the market gets time to digest. And if it's like really negative news, if that happens in an open market day, there might be gut reaction and stop losses get hit. Whereas, like, if some negative news comes out after close on a Friday, people have time to evaluate the news. There's not enough shock value. You can kind of come up. You can digest, because sometimes you have a news release, let's say, that comes out with some assay results, and you see the price starts to go down, then you might, oh, I'm not even going to wait for, to digest the news and figure out what is this actually means for the company. You just sell also, and then you might hit some stop losses that people have in that haven't even seen the news yet. And, you have a cascading selling event, basically. So I mean, that makes sense, and usually, I mean, that goes for, I think, geopolitics as well. That big stuff happens on the weekends, etc., and the market is not open, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. But I hope you get the point. It's like positive news, and the more positive the news it is, you want as many eyeballs on it as possible, and you really want that shock value. You want that, I mean, typically you want that kind of, FOMO stuff going on. Starts an uptrend, and then it feeds on itself. The opposite of, let's say, very negative news. And the holiday period is basically a very long Friday, where when the most amount of people are still at vacation, I mean, that's when you obviously would prefer to put out news that you don't, let's say, want anybody to see. We saw some, like Ramp Metals, for example. They put out some assay results that has been, not too long ago, was a very hot stock. I haven't followed that closely last, let's say, months, but it sold off by 50% or something. My point is that every day forward from now, more and more people will have returned from their trips, their vacations, back at the office. They've, let's say, sold all the shares they needed for vacation already. Now, they next amount of, the next salary might go to buying stuff instead of spending it on vacation and needing to sell shares. So more eyes, more potential buying is increasing every day. We get farther away from the peak holiday period. And another thing also is that we're approaching the Beaver Creek conference, which is kind of one of the more premier conferences. And you might have noticed, usually going into Beaver Creek, there tends to be a flurry, let's say, of news that companies deem to be positive, that they think will have, let's say, significant impact or whatever it might be, close to the Beaver Creek conference. Because of course, if you're a company attending the Beaver Creek conference, it's much better, it's much more exciting if you have something new and fresh. I mean, even if you put out the best news you put out ever in the history of companies 6 months ago, everybody knows that there's no real shock value. Yes, you can come up and talk about that on Beaver Creek, just rehashing basically. Look how how good the news is. Look how cheap our company is. Look how well things have been going. But it's not the same thing. That's quote old news. There's no real excitement tied to it because it's been digested for 6 months. So this is what makes it interesting when you think about it in terms of timing. And I know a few companies that have not put out news in a long time, long lag time. And usually in this sector, it's like the saying is good news travels by a Ferrari, and bad news travels by a cart and a donkey, basically. I mean, I'm probably butchering that phrase, but you know what I mean. It's like if a company has their first drill hole looks super super good. I mean, better than the rest of the drill holes, or if every drill hole looks good visually, then you're gonna probably rush that hole, rush the assets to get a quick, to get the market excited immediately, and then it's gonna probably be easier to raise, yada yada yada. Whereas like if you have let's say, some deposit you can't really visually tell if if you think it's that good or not, but sometimes what's usually the case, especially for early stage exploration, where it's very hard to hit something really really good. And hitting a barn burner assay on early stage exploration, that's very hard. And then typically you might do it in batches, because let's face it, if you, and it depends on the system, but if you drill 10 holes and 5 of them will be, or 4 of them will be good, 1 will be great, or you think so at least, and 5 of them will be poor. If you do it, release it hole by hole, there's going to create so much volatility. Let's say the first hole drilled somewhere is a hit. Okay, the stock goes up. It's like, nice, great. This looks really good. The next hole is pretty much a duster. They missed the let's say mineralized zone. Then the sky is gonna be falling, and then they hit some good hole in in the next assays are good. Then it's gonna go maybe up again. It's just gonna whipsaw people, and it's gonna create so much chaos and confusion, greed and fear. So companies tend to batch assays, especially I would say if you think you have some good, some bad, you want to batch. I mean, because we've seen news releases where it's like the headline assay is like 20 meters or 2 grams per ton or something, or even better than that sometimes, and then you see where it's like 6 out of the 7 holes released were bad or something, but 1 hole was great, and then that becomes the headline, so you take the good with the bad. But then you obviously have to wait to put stuff out, right? You have to wait for holes, and maybe you're 5 holes deep and haven't you don't think you found anything, or you have assays and you don't even think you found much, and then the 6 comes and it's like, great, okay, we waited for the 6 hole and now we can put out a news release where the 6 hole is the headline holes, so even those like on average the holes weren't like that great, you at least have, you know, something positive to come out with the market, because this is, I mean, junior sector is a race against dilution, right? So I mean, it's just one of those things that has nothing directly to do with the fundamentals in a sense, but it's how you massage the view of a company or whatever, because you do have to, you know, usually raise money and all of that, and you do have to take into account investor psychology. I mean, I don't envy being a junior mining CEO. Let's put it like that. It's so much more than the actual just geology. That's one thing, and that's hard enough. But it's timing, it's capital markets, it's how you write news releases, it's timing of the news and when it gets released, how it gets released also affect things. So my point is, let's say I'm just gonna make an example. Let's say this is peak. Let's say this is peak holiday season, and this is the Beaver Creak event. So between here, let's say you have varying degrees of people being on vacation, like a span like that, and let's say here everybody's back, and here you have Beaver Creek. So if you have bad news, you'd probably prefer to put it out in the holiday season, closer to the peak, so summer doldrums as possible, basically. If you have really good news, or good news, whatever, if you have positive news, you don't typically want to release it in here, especially not near to the peak of the holiday season, because there's nobody gonna be there to see it and watch it, and by the time people come back, the news is already old. That's not gonna, you know, people are gonna feel, oh, I'm late, I already missed the boat, people have had, you know, I'm back from my vacation and the news has been out for a month, so don't even need to bother, because you feel like, well, you're a latecomer anyway. I mean, all of that makes sense, right? And then again, you have Beaver Creek coming up, where it's like, okay, the closer we are to Beaver Creek now, the more people will get back. So it's like the amount of people watching the markets and, you know, maybe preparing to buy, that's increasing. Also, Beaver Creek is like a megaphone or a stage where you can amplify any news you put out. I mean, usually you wouldn't go to Beaver Creek, for example, and put out some really bad news release the day before the conference. I mean, what do you think everybody's going to be talking to you about? So it's like you basically walked yourself into an ambush where everybody's going to be peppering you with, you know, what is happening and all that. That's probably not a fun experience, and you would typically not want that, right? So that's the interesting thing then. If you have companies that have had a long time to put out news, and or whatever, they started drilling here or even farther back. What do you do if you find yourself in this period and it's like, okay, it's already taken a long time, but if we think we have news that the market is gonna like, for example, or positive news anyway. I mean, the market doesn't like all positive news and all that because there's so much more to it. Well, what do you do? I mean, here is like let's say the golden period to release positive news if you're, let's say, going to Beaver Creek. But that might add on a lot of extra weight for people. Because, okay, well, if we have news here, and if this was regular seasonality, if this was like, I don't know, anything other than a holiday period, I guess, then you would obviously like to, well, then you could release it at any point because people are at their offices, etc., etc. So I just find this very interesting. So I'm expecting, like, Beaver Creek tends to sometimes come with pretty uh, let's say meaningful news flow, because I think a lot of the attendees, again, they try to target releasing, if they have good news in the pipeline, they try to basically use as much ammo as they can, running up to Beaver Creek, and then being able to be on stage there and talk about it to all the whatever investors, high net investors, and it's going to be fresh, it's going to be good. There's a big audience. Everybody, the word is going to go out. People are going to talk at the conference. Like, did you see the news? Yada yada. Yes. So it's like a rumor mill, or talk about news mill, I guess. I hope this all makes sense, and why I think, again, that at this particular time, everything doesn't necessarily need to be as it seems. So I'm expecting there's going to be, I mean, some juniors, I expect, or I hope, there's going to be a lot of positive news coming out, for some of my holdings, as we get closer to Beaver Creek. And again, just pointing out the fact that if how it works here, there's like, if you've been waiting a long time for news and it's not out in this period, then it might be because it's not actually that bad. It's actually good, because the delays in this period where there's no vacation to account for, then it might just simply be, not that great, negative. But if you're already late and find yourself in this, and you still haven't put out news, that's like, okay, that's interesting, because if you had news that you knew were really bad, you would like to release it in the holiday period, especially around the peak. So it's kind of interesting how it almost flips, that the delays up until this period is like, typically, I guess one could call it like expectations are bad, but then if you're still, if news is still delayed and you're going out of the, let's say, summer doldrums, increase closer to Beaver Creek, and you're, let's say, attending, a company's attending Beaver Creek, then I actually think it flips and delays turns to a bullish skew despite the weight. And actually, the more weight, it kind of increases the odds that it's going to be positive news. Of course, it's only in hindsight we know that, well, they didn't even release any news at Beaver Creek or before Beaver Creek, and the news drops here. Yes, then it turns out that, hey, the news cycle, or the slowness, let's say, of the news was actually an indicator of that. But we only know that post Beaver Creek. I guess then it kind of flips again, right? That if you, up to Beaver Creek, if news isn't out when one would like to put out negative news, I think it skews the expectations to the bullish side. And if we pass Beaver Creek and no news is out, then it kind of drops quickly off, if you know what I mean. And here it's probably, the longer the wait period, a skew towards negative news, because there's no reason really to sit on it here, because there is an audience. So if you had good news, I hope that makes sense. It's actually kind of interesting to think about stuff like this, even though, again, I'm primarily a value investor, but still I just enjoy this kind of theory crafting, in a sense, and how psychology works, and small details one can maybe pick up on, and in a sense, I mean, if that might be it's on the margin, it's marginal, of course, but hey, I mean, I do think that if there's some companies that have waited a long time to put out news, and you haven't put out news in the summer doldrums, and they're going to Beaver Creek. I mean, yeah, I'm more inclined to believe that the news is not going to be negative, because then I think it would be out already. Sure, there is the possibility that they're gonna go into Beaver Creek without news and then release bad news, post Beaver Creek, so there's not gonna be 100 people angry at them. But there's a few cases where I think like I'm leaning more towards the delay at this point in time actually increasing the chance of them being good. Uh, some news: Rackla Metals Pride. I was traveling when this came out, so I actually haven't really had. I haven't been home that long, so I haven't really had that much time to digest it. But the Rackla forum is really good of like this dissecting. I mean, there's some I think geos and all that. So I mean, it's probably one of the highest quality uh, forums, let's say channels I've seen in quite some time. Of course, I mean most people here are bullish, so there's a bullish bias. There's a few trolls or uh, people are negative as well. Usually, the other people have pretty good responses to them. But it's a lot about scientific, because that's what's exciting about Rackla. It's like I I have absolutely no idea what the assets are going to show. Rackla seems to be a freakish in the sense that very high bismuth, and the thesis is right now that the bismuth probably is the metal that's kind of been scavenging the gold. So, and tellurite, I don't know if it scavenges, but travels at least, correlates strongly with gold. So there's some weird things about grad. Lack of VG. That's very well, kind of weird, I guess. I mean, I've asked ChatGDP about that, and apparently Fort Knox, I don't think had that much VG either, and that's still a 10 million ounce, world class deposit if you found another one of those. But that's a bit weird. It's like Snowline Valley, a lot of VG, a lot of yeah, small flakes. So there you could at least see which veins, for example, had gold and where the gold was. Yeah, yeah. And for Valley, I think it's only pretty much the gold is in the veins, and that's where you find the VG. Whereas like Grad doesn't have VG, not an appreciable amount at least, but have some very high grade samples, and some are even in rocks that don't even have veins in them. So it's very weird that it looks like, and Quinton and the company I think as well has been talking about this, the fact that there looks to be disseminated bismuth in the system and bismuth in the veins. So what does that mean? I don't know. I mean, from an asset perspective, I don't know. To me, it's quite exciting that, like, okay, if the thesis is that, because I like to think about, I mean, we're all guessing, but it's like, if I just looked at it from, an Occam's razor perspective, it's like, okay, if we believe that the gold is with the bismuth primarily, and we have bismuth in the veins plus bismuth disseminated, that's, for all intents and purposes, a positive, right? Because it looks like there might be gold in the host rock, let's say, and that's not the case with Valley, as far as I understand. Then you have vein densities. I mean, they're here they're increasing a lot. Here's a very hot zone here. Here's kind of low, relatively low. Here's relatively low. But the funny thing is, like, this is the channel sample that ran 38 meters of 1.8 grams per ton. I think that was the case. And the last 6 meters ran 5.3 grams per ton, and it ended in that. So we have no idea. It's like, what if they trenched up here? What happened then? And the interesting thing is like, okay, 6 meters of 5.3 grams per ton. Does that translate to the drill core? Are these portions here, for example, going to translate like to 6 meters of around 5 grams per ton? But these are also drill holes, right? I mean, they're way longer than 6 meters, way longer than 38 meters. And here, I mean, I guess these two are closest to the end of the trench. And here, I mean, there's not a super high vein density. And if you look at these are the talus samples, here you have really high vein density. But above that in the talus, I mean, the grades are starting to drop off. I mean, someone pointed this out, where it's like, here you have a stretch of purple talus. I think these are rock samples. Yes, 3 grams per ton, very high, rock sample. So this is kind of the meatiest area of the rock and talus anomaly. But if you just do it straight up like this, for example, yes, here you have very high vein density, but it's like this space here in this hole. I mean, this is low vein density. Relatively, this is relatively low vein density. This is, decent vein density. Out here, I mean, the samples are not bad in the talus, but here's like the vein density gets kind of extreme at the end here, or extreme, above 15. So it's like there's a lot of weird stuff, and it's impossible to know what it actually means, because they noted that the sericitic areas of the core, sericitic areas, and that's where the trench was in, I'm pretty sure, and they noted that vein density goes down, and the trench was good, and I think that was at least half of it was in the sericitic expression on surface. So there might be a case. I mean, usually it's like for valley, the more veins, the higher the vein density, the better the grades. But who knows? Maybe that's true in a vacuum as well. The more veins, and if they all carry gold, one would expect that higher vein densities, higher and more gold in the veins because there's more veins. But maybe where it's a lot of sericite and there's not too much, not as much veining. Maybe there's a shit ton of disseminated bismuth there with gold in it, that actually the grades would be higher in the zone with sericite and less veining. So I don't know. This might be a flipped version in the sense of value, where it's like the actual best zones are like here, and these might be good but not as good, or it might be the opposite, that you have both or whatever, or it might change that here for some reason there's not a lot of disseminated but high veining, so that's good, but here you have a lot of disseminated plus veining. I don't know. I mean, that's what makes it fascinating. I have absolutely no idea what the assays are gonna show. I just find it to be a extremely fascinating case. It's 91 million CAD. I mean, that's obviously not pricing in a world-class discovery happening anytime soon, but it is obviously for a pre-assay junior, it's high. But it's like everything is relative. You're gonna see people who's like, well, they haven't even put out an assay yet, so it's like this is very high. I mean, there's plenty of companies that have put out assays that have a market cap of 5 million and or 10 million, and even if they have decent holes and everything. So it's like one way to look at it. That's like tier 1 at face value. Yes, it's high. It's speculative. But I also think like what's the context here? Well, the context is that this looks really weird. It appears to be a pretty much totally intact carapace of a reduced intrusion related gold system. We know the trench, we know some of the samples. We're getting solid to high vein density, and it looks like there's gold in this, maybe the disseminated bismuth areas as well. So I don't know if this is going to be freakish. I don't know if we're going to see some. Well, first of all, obviously, like Valley, you didn't hit the best areas at Valley on the first tries. They had to vector in where the actual highest grade core was. So I mean, there's a very low possibility that whatever assays we get are the worst you can get from grad, and nor the best you can get from grad. But it's obviously gonna be a huge impact what these holes show. If they come back pretty much barren, or at least that it doesn't look like it's has potential to be of immediate interest for anyone given the remoteness. I mean, in the future, who knows what grade you need. I mean, there's stuff now that was too low grade to do anything with 50 years ago, but now it works. But obviously, that's not something I think you can bank on. There's like, yes, theoretically it could still be a deposit, but in 50 years, I mean, that's not of interest, and the market's not going to put any value in that. So it's going to for sure be very high impact, very volatile, and I don't know which way, because if they come back like freakishly good, that let's say the trench, for example, was an indicator of what the possible grade is, and maybe you have even thicker sections of 5 grams per ton stuff. Maybe it's a unusually high grade reduced intrusion relay. If you get some tons with that, maybe it is an exceptional discovery. Or maybe it's not. Maybe this market cap is gonna look high. Maybe they come out with some good intervals, but it's like most of it, whatever, 200 meters or 0.5 or something. I mean, that's not gonna cut it here. Even if there is an area in this bite zone or in this intrusion where it's like you have a proper, like that's where the high grade core is, yada yada yada, and that would be found eventually, but that is only going to happen, of course, if they keep drilling in that case. And will the market give them rope if these holes come back shit? I don't know. So there's a lot of, I mean, there's so many scenarios that we can possibly know. We don't know what the exact expectations on the market is. We don't know what the assets are, and add on that again the market's appetite for, like, okay, there could be a real discovery waiting here, even if they don't make it now. But are we gonna get a shot of making that, or will the market stop caring, or they switch to another project area? I have no idea, but I'm still open to the idea of getting some unusually good assays. But it also might be, let's say, limited, where it's like you have, I don't know, 30 meters of 5 grams per ton, which is great, but then let's say very low around it, so you don't really have the bulk tonnage potential. So, let's say it's a small high grade one, but if it's, looks to be too small, are you gonna do anything with it? Yeah, I mean, obviously blue sky would be that it's got size plus grade. I mean, then it would, has the potential to overshoot Valley, I guess, theoretically. And then we're talking, a world-class deposit. But we don't know. And I would say it's like, don't, if you're planning on taking assay risk, you could always, buy in after results if they're good. I mean, if this is freakish or very good, yes, you're gonna pay up, but at least you know that. We don't know that yet, so it's like there's no real right or wrong. But I would also say, it's like, whatever you think, if you're very bullish, but don't assume that this is some kind of slam dunk, that this is gonna 10x, like 70% of 10xing. I don't know what. I'm not going to put out what I think the chance of success is, but I'm just saying, it's like, picture the scenario and get comfortable with the fact that despite how good this looks, it might underwhelm. So are you okay with minus 50% in the first day? Do you have a position size now, where it's like in hindsight, if that happens, you're like, oh yeah, but I mean, it doesn't kill the portfolio, and I'm okay with the risk I took, because based on what we see, I mean, in hindsight, it doesn't count. In hindsight, it doesn't matter. Nobody knows what this is gonna grade. And if the, let's say, bashers or the negative people, if these come out negative, they're obviously gonna say they were right. But they weren't, because they were probably not shorting it. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. And if this works out to be really well, nobody can say told you so, because nobody knew it was gonna be good. We can only guesstimate, come up with what we think the risk reward might be. In reality, Mother Nature knows the grades of all this, and it's been the same grades for millions of years. So what is there has been there for a long time. The grades that are there has been there for a long time. We have clues. That's it. And I have no real reason to think that, that this does not look encouraging. But I am not betting the farm on this. And who knows, maybe depending on the results, maybe I'll even add if it goes up. If the results are good enough, and I don't know what the threshold would be, but let's say you know, I don't know, 100 meters or 3 grams per ton, or something, you know, really juicy. It's like, you know, you have, how long is this? Like from here to here, let's say, you know, all of this is like 1.5 grams per ton or something. You have higher grade sections, whatever. I mean, that's game on. If it's better than that, I mean, I think there is still the potential for it to come out with some shockingly good assays. But one also again has to account for the fact that what are the odds that one is going to drill the best areas, even if it's there at the first try. It took Snowline some time to figure out where the high grade core was. They didn't start out with drilling 300 meters of 3 grams per ton, or 300 meters of 2 grams per ton. Took a while to find that. That's also one thing one has to account for post, let's say, reaction to the assays. Like, what does this actually mean long term? Maybe some area is like, you know, the holes are decent, but some area that ends in mineralization where it's like, oh, the last stretch here is like, I don't know, you know, 30 meters of 4 grams per ton, and that's, you know, end of hole here. I mean, then you have to start projecting. It's like, okay, what could that mean if this hole is, you know, if the rest of it is like 1 gram per ton, and you're getting into, yeah, and you have over here is like, you know, 100 meters of 150 meters of 1 gram per ton, or whatever it might be. I mean, then you have size, and then it's open-ended plus increasing in grade over here. I mean, that would be kind of interesting, but I don't know. I might lose on Rackla. Like I lost money, a lot of money on Condor, for example. I made a lot of money on Snowlines. Like, I don't know. Nobody has an answer. If I knew that the assets were going to be good from Rackla, I mean, I don't know. I would obviously have a absolutely huge position, as much as I could, if I knew that it was going to be exceptional. But I don't know that. But if they are exceptional, I also have the I could possibly add post as a result. I mean, if depending on how much it goes up. But just, I mean, that's a thing where it's like, that's why I keep saying about some of these, let's say, high risk, high reward plays, that just having it on the watch list and being aware of the story, that's a big edge. Because sometimes I see assay results from companies, and they look good and all that. I mean, the numbers. But I have no context, what the target is. Has, you know, the project been drilled before? Is this just a are these twinned holes? What's the size potential here? Yada yada. And I can't just jump unless it's whatever, it's a really low market cap company like the Landins are in it or something like that, because then you have the answers for all that. They wouldn't go after anything that's not of significant size. They're not, pump and dump promoters. So then you already have all those boxes checked. You have third party validation. You don't really need to wait for anything, because by definition they are, kind of the best investors out there. So if it's good for them, you have to be smarter than the Landins to come up with a sell. I hope you get my point. Yeah, so exciting times ahead. Maybe, I mean, if they have some really good holes and they get them out before PDAC, that could be very exciting. But there's no guarantee that they have some great holes, nor that they can get them out before PDAC. So keep that in mind. And that's also the tricky then thing, I guess, now going back to it. What if they don't have some assays out before PDAC? Does this count then? That, okay, if that's the case, they're probably not good because they will be out already. Well, Rackla has not had a long time since they drilled, it's not that much time has passed, so I'm not sure it's even possible to get out news before did I say PDAC? I meant Beaver Creek. But if they started drilling, 5 months ago, we passed Beaver Creek and there's no news out, yes, then I would say, okay, that doesn't look good. Anyway, yeah, I'm trying to be quick. I already spent 40 minutes talking about Rackla. Jesus. Another one that's somewhat in a similar position, Discovery. Inflection Resources. Someone I talked to, Brennan, IR of Newquest, IR of Inflection, that they had, if I remember correctly, let's see here. Let's see here. Yeah, spoke to Brennan. News release is complete. It's been in Anglo's hands for review since last week. Okay, I mean, I don't think Inflection. Last time Inflection put out the drill update, I think it was February or something. So this is hands down one of the most slow stories, in a sense, from a drilling perspective, that I know of and I hold. And then and we know that AngloGold needs to sign off on stuff and yada yada yada, and these guys are absolute pros. I mean, the insiders own a lot of the stock. It's a very tightly held stock, not a lot of trading. So there's no, I mean, the management and the insiders. I mean, the only way they make money if this becomes a significant success, like a material real success, it gets basically acquired, because they can't really be. They can't flip this stock, so they have to think like almost a whatever private company, and they don't need the money per se, since the meat and potatoes right now is the AngloGold free carried earning. So they don't even need to really think about share price, from the sense that, oh, okay, lower share price is bad because that means more dilution. Right now, for all we know, there is no really additional punishment for having a low share price, unless they are, gonna raise money. But anyway, my point is, we've been waiting for such a long time, and I wonder if this is also where a situation where it's like the I mean, look at the share price. This is from the what update was this? Was this Newmont's when they took the ground? March. Okay, this was when they designated 4 projects. Okay, but that wasn't, I think. I don't think the. Yeah, that was still not a drill update, but that was like, okay, great. We go from Duck Creek being into phase 2 to 4. It's like 4 projects where the heat is getting turned up, which is obviously material, like 4 projects, and each project probably has, I don't know, several targets to test for potential discoveries, and they will be working all 4. So it's like the exploration start to heat up. But look, this is, what did it top out at? 52 cents. It's been cut in half. Why? Incredibly long lead time on drill results. And again, going back to people are gonna get bored. People are gonna. I mean, sometimes I forget I own Inflection, because there's no news. It's only just watching the ticker basically. The gut reaction, well, lack of excitement is gonna put pressure on the price. People are gonna be willing to sell at lower and lower prices the less excited they are, and that of course goes with not being too much news. Then you have the gut instinct, because there's so many disappointments in this sector, because it's so hard to make a real discovery, that long time for assets, etc. I mean, tend to, again, going back to good news traveled by Ferrari, bad news traveled by donkey. So you have all of those things that means that people are okay of selling at higher prices and less people are willing to buy. But if we look at it, it's like, okay, cut in half, huge wait time, but interestingly, there's only a few weeks from Beaver Creak. Pretty sure Inflection is gonna attend. They put in the news for Anglo Gold sign off last week, and I mean, my impression has been that it could be a few weeks for Anglo to sign off. I mean, I don't know how many offices need to sign off, like the headquarters, the exploration group in Australia, etc., etc. So I assume that Inflection would think that we need a buffer. And it feels like if they put in the news last week for Anglo Gold's sign off, they would rather, or they'd like to get it out and believe they can get it signed off by the time of Beaver Creak. Well, in that case, it looks like they're aiming to release it in this time period. That I take as a positive. Again, you wouldn't really want to have obviously bad news going into Beaver Creak and time it. They would preferably probably put it out here. Now, I don't know if, I mean, again, these guys are pros, and it doesn't really matter that much what the share price does. Long-term actual success is what matters for Inflection. But still, I mean, it makes sense that you would want some, if you have good news. And maybe that opens up also then their new Newmont portfolio, because they picked up ground from Newmont, which was staked by Newcrest. And who does Inflection have on the board? Fraser McCorkadale, geologist with 35 years experience in exploring copper gold deposit globally, former Newcrest Mining's global head exploration. Do you think Fraser has an idea about the new Bell River and Tennant East projects that Inflection just acquired cheaply from Newmont, that was staked by Newcrest? Yes, of course. I mean, I would certainly think so. So if he wants Inflection to have this, and you look at the deal that Newmont did, where it's like $2 million in shares or something, they keep an NSR and Inflection gets it. To me, that screams confidence in Inflection's team. Because to give away, I mean, this is what, 4,200 square kilometers. For Newmont to give that away for $2 million in shares of Inflection plus NSR, I mean, I would love to start a junior if I could give Newmont 2%, $2 million in shares, and they keep an NSR. I think any junior, pretty much in the world, would take that deal. But not every junior could get it. So I think this is just a huge vote of confidence of how good they think Inflection's team is, and they're probably the best ones to unlock this. And of course, when you have the ex-Newcrest global head of exploration with Inflection, that's good, because he knows what they're buying. Newmont knows obviously what that guy knows what he's buying and all that, and there's total pros on board. So I mean, the way I look at this is they just got, I don't know how, more than a dozen high priority targets, so they get a dozen new lives in a sense. Assuming they are going to be able to test all of these, so at least a dozen extra targets plus all the targets they have in New South Wales. And if we draw it to an extreme, assuming they get to test all of these targets, for Inflection to become a terminal failure, they need to they need to not make a discovery on any of these projects, but anyone could make it, and that's why I pointed out here that where did I put? Yeah, the land pickup gave us another 9 lives. I mean, in a dozen, I guess, in reality. I am held Inflection longer than most holdings and larger than most pre-discovery holdings. Simple reason being no one target can kill it, but anyone can make it. X years later, we're still alive and kicking despite no significant discovery yet. And that is 100% true. Inflection is probably drilling, they are drilling more now than ever. They have larger land packages than ever. I expect them to drop some ground. But still, I mean, it's alive and kicking, and at this market cap, if they make a significant discovery, that's going to be hugely material, and they need to be lucky once. They need to be lucky on one turn. They need to make one discovery out of the 4 earning projects with Anglo Gold and the new projects. And any other projects they have. They're still alive and kicking. We have not yet made a discovery, but it is very much alive, despite not making a discovery over the last few years. So I just find it to be again one of the most unique pre-discovery plays I've ever seen, and especially from the high risk high reward numbers point of view. I really like this story, and it's again can't be a hindsight investor. It's like, well, it's been a mistake to own it because they haven't made a discovery. That nobody could know. It could have happened here, 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 it could happen with the next news release. It's only in hindsight we know that. I can't go back in time and know that, because I've held this for several years, and by doing so I've had the opportunity to be part of a discovery that could happen at any time. That's what I bought. That's what my position gave me. No discovery. Well, they actually hit a porphyry trend in the last update, but it wasn't a discovery hole type thing. Will that come? Maybe. Let's put it like, I'm not expecting bad news in the next news release. I'm not expecting. I don't think the management team think they have bad news in the pipeline. Now, what does that look? What does good news look like? We're closer to something. Let's say at Trandu, we haven't hit it, or we're closer to something at Duck Creek. Yeah, that's a possibility, because that's obviously positive by the fact that the odds of the next drilling making discovery increases. So it is positive. How will the market react from that if they just hit, let's say, some, a bit of extra smoke? I mean, I'm not expecting fireworks in that case. But despite that, it might increase the value and chance of success of Inflection. So it is material. But will the market treat it as such immediately? Not sure about that. Just like, I mean, since the last top, this was AngloGold's earning, and then they have added Newmont's portfolio. And what is the value of Newmont's portfolio? I don't know. Probably material, because Newcrest staked it. I think they've done some drilling, and I think that they've hit some smoke or something. Newmont probably shelved it for some time, and now they're doing this. My point is that ground pickup, I don't know what that is worth. Maybe 30 million in just the potential or something, especially in the hands of these guys. But you can obviously see that that's not priced in. It's actually, I think, lower today than when they picked it up. And this goes back to, it's like, that's just how the market works. Peripheral assets typically gets discounted. In poor sentiment, potential gets discounted hard. So we can understand why it's not priced in. But one can understand, I mean, I think it should, or I think, even though the market doesn't put any value of that, that has significant value. That's why I really like Inflection. I think the case for Inflection after they picked up that ground became a lot better. It's just not reflected in the share price. And that means, to me, it's a bigger story. So when you have the backdrop of, like, the context being, okay, they put in a news release last week, it looks to me like they're hoping that they will have that signed off so they can bring it with them to and talk about at Beaver Creek. That, to me, is the probabilities of the next news release being bad, I think, is low. How good, I don't know. But you add on the fact that they added a land package. So, I mean, I'm excited about Inflection, obviously. And I still don't know what's going to happen. 3 years from now, they might not have made a significant discovery, and the stock will still be around the 20-30 million. But at any drill hole could also make a discovery. Then the question is, of course, what do they do with all this new ground? Do they drill it themselves? Do they find another major? Because obviously, if it's good enough for Newcrest, and if ex-head of global exploration for Newcrest likes it and was able to pull it out of Newmont, how many majors would be interested in this land package? Again, I don't think Newmont sold it because they don't like it. It's because they think they do like it, and they want Inflection to come up with ways of exploring it. Because that seems to be what the majors are typically doing nowadays, right? I mean, they're hiring out the greenfield stuff. I mean, just look at Headwater and Inflection. It's Inflection Headwater's team that's doing the exploration. The majors are funding it because they don't necessarily have the bandwidth or have a team as good as these guys. So they're making themselves a favor by letting a team focus on this 100%. And they have enough money that there's no problem. They can just buy it out if the junior finds something, right? Tocvan secures full permit approval for pilot mine facility Grand Pilar Solar Gold Silver project. This is in Mexico, so that's obviously great to see. They get a pilot plant permit. That just, I guess, is another sign that Mexico is not as dead as some thought for a while, but it's been slow getting permits. But there's been some permits coming out, and this is for open pit. Sure, it's a pilot plant, but anyway. So I mean, the idea is, or the hope for Tocvan is that, I thought I had the presentation up, I didn't. That this is low capex startup, and this will actually become a mine. And I talked about these stories because now I think that the second part of the Lassonde curve is very, very juicy, where you have the majors and the producers who are directly benefiting from the fact that the gold and silver price is where it is, especially the gold price. They're benefiting from that in the bottom line each and every day, whereas the junior sector has been sluggish, not too much capital has gone in. So the majors are getting rewarded for the reality of the gold price, where most juniors are still trade with a junior discount, because most of them don't have any production, so it doesn't matter in a sense where the gold price is. But the juniors that can get into production, where the ASIC margin of gold mines is the highest ever, I mean that's some let's say developer to producer arbitrage. I mean it's the highest it's ever been probably, and I don't think the junior sector is really pricing that in. So blue sky is that pilot mine, maiden resource, PEA, that they can get proof of concept, and they pretty much become a gold and silver producer, starting small and then ramping up. So I mean it's a tightly held stock, so it's like if that works out, this could do wonders. We haven't seen the PA, so we don't really know what the production profile and all that is, but there's potential here. So imagine if you let's imagine that Tocvan was able to get himself into production, and it turns out that they have whatever 2 million ounces or something that's going to get produced before this is all over. 2 million ounces if we have gold prices around these levels, and this is forward-looking statements, of course. They don't have 2 million ounces right now, but I mean capex. I mean 50,000 per year. Let's say the gold price is 3,400. Let's say ASIC is to be on the conservative. Let's say 1,400. That's $2,000 times 50,000. That's 100 million USD in ASIC margin per year. And what if it costs you less than 20 million? And that's just for the mine construction. Obviously you pay for studies and drilling and all that, so you can add some, but like the mine itself, isn't that a great payoff? If I could put out 20 million US to produce 50,000 ounces of gold per year, and if the gold price stays at this level and I have a 1,400 ASIC and an ASIC margin of $2,000 per ounce, and I get to, I mean my 20 million investment gets me 100 million US in ASIC margin per year. Over, I mean 10 years you would have mined 500,000 ounces. That's a pretty good investment. Obviously that's not net profits, but whatever the removed net profits, even if it's whatever 40-50 million, that would still be double your investments every year for 10 years or something. I mean that's what I like, and we've never seen anything like this before in this space. I mean the ASIC margin used to be, I don't know, I mean what was the ASIC margin at $1,600 gold for most majors? Maybe they had ASIC of 1,200 or something, so 400. Now it's the highest ever, multiples of what it had just a few years ago. That's why I find these startup or low capex startups so fascinating, because we don't know what the gold price is going to be in 10 years. Maybe its system has been reset by that time. But if you have a company that can get into production and capture this cycle, well, that's interesting. Kobrea's put out some news. Significantly expand El Perdido porphyry targets. Mendoza province completes next payment under property payment option agreement for its western Malarg copper projects. I mean, Perdido is the flagship target. It looks like it's the signs are that it's a very large porphyry that is pretty much how to put it, like I'm not going to say perfectly eroded, but instead of being 2 kilometers underground where the high grade core might be, it might be very near surface. So if this image here turns out to be right, and this is a well mineralized, very large porphyry, yeah, I mean that could be a world-class deposit. And I think they're planning on drilling in September. This is one. These exploration stories I like because proof of concept could be quite quick. They don't need. I mean, Inflection, very high risk, in the sense that each target is undercover and it's not outcropping, yada yada yada. So you need a lot of kicks at the can, and you need a major to fund that because it's going to be very hard to test 15 plus targets for a junior or 30 targets for a junior, because that means a lot of dilution over time. But of course, I mean, if they hit something 100% owned, it's like boom. In this, I mean, this is pretty much, I think, the dream scenario of a grassroots target for a junior. Huge target, appears to be near surface. So, relatively easy to test and relatively cheap to test, with some of the highest price potential there is. Do I need Kobrea's El Perdido's gonna turn out to be a world-class porphyry discovery? No, but it's in the land of giants, and they're gonna be able to test it. I mean, they have a huge land package worthy of a major, and I think they could relatively easily get earning deals like Inflection for that land package. So there's a lot of meat on the bones for the company, but in the eyes of the market and in my eyes right now, this is pretty much what the story is about. But saying that if they completely miss and come out with dusters and El Perdido doesn't turn out to be anything, if it goes down 50%, the story is not over, because they still have a huge land package with many more targets. So from a longer term perspective, they're in the kind of inflection perspective where Perdido can't break the case, but it can make the case. But then, of course, if you only play it for Perdido, then that's it. Goliath, this was in July already. 11 grams per ton over 4.55 meters, maintain 100% hit rate, 90% of holes contain visible gold. This is also one. I mean, they have 9 drill rigs going, drilling 60,000 meters. I think, I mean, they've put out some holes. Now, I'm assuming they're saving, I think they're saving some ammo to be released shortly before Beaver Creek. That's what I think. So I think, and I mean, if they haven't hit anything or haven't gotten any good assays, there's not going to be any good assays coming out before Beaver Creek. But this is a quite pretty. I mean, they're hitting a lot of places. They have 9 drill rigs, a lot of drilling going on. They have a bunch of zones, a bunch of potential. So let's put it like this: I'm not going to be surprised if they come up with a big, fat, beefy news release in the next couple of weeks leading up to PDAC, and so they have something really nice to talk about. I mean, they're already spoiled everyone by, it's like, I mean, most of their real results are already impressive, but still, it doesn't hurt if you can beef it up extra. So yeah, that's one. I mean, they haven't really been slow at all. I mean, they've been releasing some good. I mean, yeah. I mean, pretty high. You can see pretty high news frequency, and it's hard to say it's been dropping off. But like, okay, 17 days since the last. Since the last news release, I guess this was kind of that kind of lag, but we haven't had a news release, so it's at least it's at least let's say 17, 18 days since the last news release and counting. So it does look like they might be extending it and trying to pack an even bigger punch in the coming news release, if I had to guess. Again, stuff to be kind of aware of, especially if you find, I don't think Goliath is really that, unexciting right now. But okay, it's, tapered off a bit at least. And that's kind of what you want to see, right? If you think that some of these stories are a bit boring or very boring, with low expectations, low excitement, no excitement premium, whatever, and you go into a period where you think some of these juniors are gonna release news, and if they choose this period, it means it's probably good. That's not really what you read in a lot of these charts. That's what you, if we're talking just impact, like share appreciation, yeah, that's kind of what you want to see. Integra and Shoshone Paiute tribes establish historic relationship agreement. Obviously, very positive ESG, community relations. They have even senators commenting. So this is apparently something I don't think has been unprecedented in the lower 48 states in both recognized and tribal sovereignty, collaboratively advancing sustainable long-term development. So this obviously de-risks Delamar. Looks like it's in. If you get because that's obviously I think a very important thing, like social license. If it's impossible to get anything done, if you want to build a mine and it's impossible for you to build a mine, what's that mine worth? But if you see stuff like this, this increases Delamar chances of becoming a mine, and I think they say it's taken 5 years of, like, let's say, relationships, etc., etc. So this is, de-risking Delamar plus pulling it forward in terms of potential production, because this is a waypoint that's been met. Headwater Gold announced a strategic private placement with lead orders from Rick Rule and Jeff Phillips. Yeah. How much that changed the case? Not that much. It's just much more, more vote of confidence that some smart investors think they have a great story, have a great company set up. More eyes on it. Of course, Rick Rule is, everybody kind of knows Rick Rule. So not bad at all. I think it's especially with their land pickup, and I don't think the market really. The Ocean. Well, it went up a bit, I guess. But still, they're gonna be raising somewhat more, but let's say 27 million or something, with the amounts of projects they have, and soon they have. Well, they kind of have 3 earnings with Oceana, 2 with Newmont, and obviously none of these guys are. They're all after something big. Worthy of, those kind of companies, and free care and all that. So it's like sit back and relax kind of ride, where if it becomes cheaper, there's no obvious dilution coming up in that case, because they have 5 projects that they're not even funding. I hold the story, like superb management, new Quest company. Don't really need to care too much. They need to make one significant discovery. They've already made a discovery at Spring Peak, which they are not getting much for, even though Newmont is the earning partner. But hey, that's the market. It's like, it's wacky. Headwater, I tweeted when it was like, I don't know what it was, 16 million or something. It's absolutely crazy how cheap that is. But that's the thing. It's like, yes, the market is frustrating in a sense, where you have stuff like this. Okay, peak here goes down for pretty much 2 years. Yeah, that's frustrating. That's going to make people hate this sector. but that also means, I mean, in this case, for example, it just open up an egregious, opportunity. It's like nosebleed cheap, despite the fact that you don't know if they're gonna, if it's gonna turn out that they have a super, whatever 10-20 bag kind of discovery stuff. Still, it's just way too cheap. I mean, it doesn't add up at all. So the very reason people hate this sector is the very reason why you should love this sector, because this stuff, these prices should never happen. The bets just become too absurdly good, and you wouldn't have that if you didn't have this. That's the thing. Most people obviously play this sector the complete opposite way and don't have anywhere near their patience. They're buying up here and then they're selling down here, and then they complain about this sector, how it's impossible. With infinite patience and common sense, you would have figured out that this is a much, for example, better buy than up here. And if this was a buy, this would be, a great buy. That's just based on common sense, not rocket science. Store is intact, they had a bunch of projects, they have a discovery already, and the share price still went down like that because they didn't have much news out. Yeah, like First Nordic. This is, excuse me. Yeah, I don't even think about it. I mean, this is been as slow basically for drill assays as Inflection. And lo and behold, both stocks are down like 40-50% from the multi-month highs. Inflection and First Nordic have been punishing my portfolio in that sense. I mean, it's like both of them have underperformed on average, I was gonna say. Well, the average junior, let's say, over the last, let's see here. Yeah, underperformance. I mean, I think SILJ this year is up 76. No, GDXJ is up 76 this year. First Nordic is what, break even, something like that. So you have two super boring stories. Or yeah, that's been super, and they've been punished for it. The share price has punished them for it. This is not exciting, and the long time for news is not exciting. What does that change? Did Inflection go down 50% in value? Absolutely not. Did First Nordic go down whatever it is, 45% in value since here? Absolutely not. That's the market, and we can understand why that's the market. And we can understand no trader wants to buy this. Nobody that cares about excitement wants to buy this. This does not attract 95% of people. Nobody likes to buy cheap. People want to buy an uptrend and pretend they're cheap. People don't actually want to buy when they are cheap. As they're getting cheaper, they might like it for some time. Maybe, this first dip here is like, oh, I'm getting in cheap down here. No way. That's when it has already flipped. Then it's when the separates the chaff from the wheat, in that sense that it's easy to say that you're buying dips and buying on the cheap if a stock has dipped here in an uptrend, or dipped here. These kinds of dips, when they actually become much more, let's say, cheaper here than they were here, but then you won't have the people saying they're cheap. Then then they have given up or give up. And First Nordic, I'm pretty sure, also going to Beaver Creak. We've been waiting again a long time for these first assays. I don't know how many they have. I assume they have some. I don't know how many they have. But and so they started drilling, a long time ago. Okay. okay, long time. And then again, if you find it, let's say the first holes or some holes are good. I mean, given they're doing quite wide spaced drilling. I mean, this is a 500-meter scale bar here. So if you can just carpet bomb like that, I mean, there's no way you're gonna hit on all those holes. Even if it is something good here, it's like just no way. I mean, this is like real step out, real wildcat drilling, most of it. This is around where I think this was the discovery, or maybe here. These are higher chance of success because you know you hit something around here. I mean, these step out holes and all that, much lower, even if it's there. I mean, you could have missed it by, whatever, some meters. Like, you don't know. Anyway, yeah, going back to this. So we find ourselves again now that we had a long wait time. Then we get into the peak vacation period with Beaver Creek coming up. And they still haven't put out the first assays. If they were shit, if they were crap, my questions like, would Gernot Wober get involved? And a Cisco mining veteran, he could probably choose to work for any junior out there. Any junior out there would want to have a brand name like that. He's been working for Cisco Open Mining or Cisco Mining, with the founders of Cisco Mining and Discovery Silver. And Discovery Silver recently became a, what is it now, $3 billion market cap company. I don't know exactly when he left, but it's like, it said he was involved with the acquisition of the Porcupine Complex. So he's like, okay, this is enough for me. So it's like, you don't, and I mean, just look at the quotes in his in the news release. The Goliath Belt in northern Sweden represents one of the most compelling exploration opportunities I've encountered in my career. The combination of having an entire structural belt with very limited historical exploration, proximity to the 2.4 million ounce Barsele Gold project, and excellent regional infrastructure sets the stage for meaningful discovery. After visiting the site, reviewing the historical and recent core meeting, the highly motivated technical team, it became clear that there's immediate potential to add value and advance this portfolio across 2025 and 2026. One of the most compelling exploration opportunities I've encountered in my career. This is not a random geo saying this. This is a Cisco mining veteran who helped make the Windfall discovery, or the Link Zone discovery, for Cisco mining, that later got acquired for, what was it, 1.6 billion. I don't think, I mean, Barsele is not consolidated, so you can't be drilling there. So did you just jump on as like, I'm a placeholder, not knowing like, okay, when is actually this consolidation going to happen, so I can actually drill Barsele and directed drilling, whatever. And looking at recent core, historical and recent core, I assume he means the 100% owned, like, the IDA target and the IDA drilling. So if he thought that looked shit, and there's not going to be anything here at IDA, or maybe, I don't think he would have seen any NIPA score. What was I going to say? Yeah, I mean, it's just common sense. Why would a guy like that jump on a store? Obviously, he sees some significant value potential, some significant exploration potential, and then we just go back to the fact that, okay, what's the market cap? $108 million. They have around, I don't know, I guess like 17, 18 million perhaps in cash, so it's 90 million for 45% of Barsele, which is worth a lot more now than it was years back, plus Ojärvi, plus the 100% exploration potential that Gernot Wober stated to be one of the best exploration opportunities. I mean, again, that also gets forgotten. I mean, you're going to see you're gonna see, I mean, a lot of, you know, like VAD, PL, and Clan and stuff. I mean, they obviously, they're again, fundamentals get forgotten. Same happen in Inflection. Fundamentals get forgotten. Same happen in Headwater. All those companies did not. I mean, some actually went up in value in a sense. They certainly didn't go down 50% in value, for example, since their last top. But when it happens, that means that fundamentals are not playing as much a part of it anymore. It's more, it goes more and more towards sentiment driven. Momentum, sentiment, and personally, it's like First Nordic. Do you know how frustrating it's been, even though, I mean, to see this? I mean, First Nordic has underperformed since the top here, the sector. I mean, this year it has underperformed. Now, how bad has it actually done? Well, I mean, since inception, it's not done that bad at all, but it's not done great. I mean, this is the cheapest gold junior I know of in this stage, where I think you have massive margin of safety plus some of the best blue sky exploration potential that you get for free. So out of all, you know, gold juniors out there that I've looked at, this has maybe the most egregious asymmetrical risk reward. Is the market agreeing with that? No, but then we also have the, you know, the warrants. I mean, there's some warrants that come free trading, or they lapse, I think, in October. That's not too far off. I think they're at 27 cents. So you have a bunch of stuff like that, plus a downtrend, plus sentiment, plus a lot of talk. Again, it's like most of it, as we can, I mean, perfect example here. I mean, somebody started the topic, but there's not too much about, you know, fundamentals in a sense. It's belly aching, it's whatever, picking share price targets, it's complaining about the share price and all that. So it's just case in point. This is what happens, and you have to go back and remind yourself, because this is what's always going to happen at any low and in this sector and in any stock. Fundamentals gets most forgotten at lows, and the most forgotten they are is at lows. I mean, when this entire sector goes down 80%, nobody's really talking about fundamentals. Everybody's selling because it feels shit, they've seen the recent trend, yada yada. So the market makes it seem like the fundamentals aren't the fundamentals and fundamentals doesn't matter. That's when you really have to flip it yourself and refresh yourself. It's like, okay, I see what the sentiment is, and like right now, I mean, how much is there to be like happy about in, you know, First Nordic, in the sense that since, I mean, this is obviously what we're complaining about. We're not complaining about this going from whatever here, doubling over 1 year and 8 months or anything like that. People are not complaining here to here. People are complaining here to here. So that's what feels shitty. It's like the frustration, the way, the recent underperformance, the long time to news, yada yada yada. But if you look at what the company's actually done and all that, it's like, what has actually changed? We're waiting for the first assays. The market is not pricing in any excitement about IDA. It's not pricing in any meaningful portion of Barsley. I think Barsley is a tier 2 deposit. I think the gold line belt could be a 5 to 10 million ounce cap. That is obviously not priced in. The only reason I'm super excited about First Nordic is because I think it's one of the, or the cheapest gold junior I know of, when I look at what the value of their assets, the value of 100 kilometers of the gold line belt, the value of what Gernot describes, the value of 45% free carried interest of Barsley, the value of 100% owned Ojärvi. That is materially higher than what the market is offering it up for in the sector. That is the, I buy because something is cheap, I sell when it's not cheap, typically. Yes, I'll do some, let's say, maybe some speculative trading now and then. Usually I don't even talk about that. But that's the only reason. I use one reason. I don't fall into, or I try not to, because it's hard. I try not to fall into this, where here you're all excited about the fundamentals. Then sentiment turns against you. A trend forms. You get trolls and bashers who obviously they're not going to talk about the fundamentals. Like Vad, he's talking about anything else. If you ask them what do you think it is worth, you're probably not going to get a response and all that. I'm not. Maybe they don't do it on purpose in a way, because that's just how most people operate. That's why most people sell low and buy high. Here fundamentals matters. Here it doesn't. This is why investing overall, and especially in a volatile sector, is why it's so hard. We start to think differently. We start to think differently at times when it goes against us in a sense. That's it. I don't consider First Nordic a high risk story at all. Barsele is not uniquely, but it's one of the best undeveloped projects out there. For its size, its infrastructure, its expected margins at that size, let's say 200,000 ounce production, the jurisdiction, and yes, infrastructure, and how advanced it is with national interest designation, etc. These deposits do not grow on trees. There are not many Barsele deposits out there. Then you add the 100-kilometer land package, and there's probably not a junior that I know of in a similar situation. Yes, there's some juniors with very large land packages. They tend to be in worse jurisdictions, or they tend to be in remote areas of Canada, and pretty much none of them have a multi-million ounce deposit, even though First Nordic doesn't own 100% of it, but 45% of it. But that package together with obvious satellite, it's like kind of what Montage Gold is doing down there in Ivory Coast. I mean, I think they have the first initial resources on like 7 satellite deposits or something, and Kone 5 million ounce deposit is the hub. They're building a great hub and spoke story in Africa, $1.85 billion. They're more advanced, obviously. I mean, they're close in production, but they're also in Africa. And again, it's like there's when you have a land package this size, like I like this, dude. Have they taken away here's the comparison. If you just look at the scale and figure how many companies are, or I mean, Agnico is basically consolidated a lot, I guess, over the Abitibi by now. But how many juniors, I don't know how many juniors must have explored this over the last 100 years. Think of all the companies today, think of all the previous iterations, got to be hundreds of companies, I think. Golan Belt is like a few companies have done some work on this entire land package. And we already know there's potential for multi-million ounce gold deposits because Barsele is one. It's like what's happening in Finland, basically. So don't kid yourself. I'm biased, but again, this does not reflect the value at all. This does not reflect the scarcity of a project package like this at all. And there's many reasons for the pricing, and now more so than ever. I mean, a downtrend, nothing changes sentiment and price. So now it's just amplified. Some people didn't touch it because it was in Sweden, or haven't touched it. Well, Sweden is now the 6th highest ranked jurisdiction in the world. Most pro-mining in 30 years. Some might not touch it because ownership of Barsele, that the flagship asset is not consolidated, and because I've spoke to people who said it's like, yeah, good project, but they don't, they're not operators, etc. So it's gonna be boring, right? And that's enough for people, whatever, and everybody has their own reasons. All of them lead to discounted prices because there's less buying due to personal reasons, let's say. Then you add warrants, then you add the downtrend, then you add the slow assays. This is a recipe for low prices. Really great recipe for low prices. Does anything really have to do with the value though? I mean, some in some senses, and of course in this case, if you raise it 37 cents rather than 52, that means a bit more dilution. So yes, some of this stuff has real world implications, but has anything changed for Barsele? Has anything changed for the land package? No. Did Gernot's involvement spark any excitement? I can't see any. So that's ignored. Again, going back to stuff like that, that's ignored. This is purely sentiment, momentum, and let's say probably some warrant overhang. That's almost 90% dictating the share price trend right now. Well, my strategy is looking at the value. What could this be in a year? What could it look like in 2 years, 3 years? I'm buying all future potential right now in all these assets for 108 million plus, let's say 17, 18 million in cash. So I'm buying I'm buying all of this plus 45% of Barsele plus Ojärvi for 90 million CAD. 90 million CAD. That is crazy. There's 10 years of work at Barsele by Agnico. That is absolutely crazy. That is the only reason why I'm bullish. That's the only reason why I keep buying dips. Because the value in this picture is so much higher than the price in the market. And that's why I don't even consider it a high risk story. Right now it's boring as shit though. Right now it's frustrating as hell. But if I let that dictate my buying, then I have no place to be an investor in this sector, because I'm gonna be selling every low, every time in every company. But again, that is the topic. The topic changes depending on sentiment. Now it's yes, mostly share price. Again, there was some trader I think that had I don't know. He said I'm looking at 25 cents or something like that. From a technical perspective, again, just pointing out that no trader actually no trader is buying this. If anything, if they had a shareholding, they're probably selling it. What does that mean? Well, I'm going the opposite. My idea is that I want to take advantage of that, because the amount of momentum traders and trend followers and just people who can't buy low, who are more likely to sell. I mean, they are the one creating the opportunities, like happening, Headwater, and it's happening in Inflection and a bunch of other stories. It's like Amex when I picked that up because the sentiment was absolutely atrocious, and there's been disappointments and all. It just got too cheap for psychological reasons, and I bought it, and since then it's been treating me quite well, and it's like Integra as well. They just became too cheap, and if cheapness is my go-to thing, I'm averaging down. I'm doubling down. If value has not gone down and they keep getting cheaper, I dabble down. Because the idea, for example, we know what the sentiment is right now. We know the frustration is right now, but I'm not buying First Nordic because what's going to trade next Tuesday or tomorrow. We're waiting for 40 assays, plus they have, let's say, 17 million for phase 2, and Gernot has jumped on board. Could sentiment be a bit changed maybe after 40 holes plus 17 million more work? Yes, and you have as an underpinning the 45% carried interest from Agnico, and Agnico are they're drilling 7 targets right now. But right now it doesn't matter. The fundamentals of First Nordic doesn't matter right now in the market. Over the longer term, it's gonna matter. That's why I expect to make money on First Nordic. Because there is no way, in my opinion, that where is it here? That the intrinsic value of this, which is a lot higher than current market price, is never going to be reflected, even 50% of it. If I was a trader, if I forgot about the value of this story, I would probably be selling. But how many again? Well, you can almost see that just in 5 years might be a bit much. Let's say 2 years. Upswing, downswing, upswing, downswing. Go look at any intact story, success story even, like fat success story. Upswing, downswing, upswing, downswing, upswing, downswing, and this was like 1-2 year consolidation. Downswing, upswing, downswing. That's just how the market works. But people don't sell lows because they think about the fundamentals. They sell low because they think it's going to price trend is going to continue forever. Whereas, like, if they thought about the fundamentals, they would know that it's in some cases pretty much impossible for the downtrend to keep going because it's so absurdly cheap. It's just a matter of when has the dumbest fuck sold his shares. How low can somebody sell that before it's like nobody's getting, even like quote more stupid? I hope you get my point. I don't have a crystal ball. It's just, again, my guiding principle is price versus value. And as soon as I stray away from that, then I don't have a strategy anymore. Well, I have something else than that. And Amex completes final transfer of 37.25 million. So now they have a bunch of ammo to drill and advance Perron towards. They're aiming for production. This sentiment is fucking shit down here. And I looked at Amex for a long time. They put out some really good results and all that, but usually it felt like they were getting a lot of credit for it. So I never saw Amex as like a misunderstood, way too cheap case really. Until 2025, until like this period. No, I started buying it here. They put out the MRE, and that disappointed. And there's imagine the amount of frustration for people who are like, oh, I'm gonna stick it out until I break even or something, or they were waiting for the Hail Mary, let's say, or Hail Mary, but you know what I mean. It's like they're waiting for the pain to stop. Okay, it dropped. This was kind of the final straw. Actually, I know actually a good, exceptionally high grade, actually a good project, and I was like, okay, I feel bad for people who've been aboard this journey, But I didn't know. I certainly wasn't short Amex. I mean, they had really good holds out and all that. It just popped up that wow, okay, sentiment is so shit that the prices become so low and the fundamentals are not that bad. So I finally bought in. And I didn't even follow and know the story that well. It's just that when I saw this happen, it's like, whoa, now sentiment's gotta be bad. So people are not selling because they think the value is higher than the share price. Now it's frustration selling. Now it's even more trend following, etc. Sure, this was, China extreme, but look what a run that was before that, and we have no idea. Do I expect? Am I surprised if Amex is going to hit $39 one day? No, I wouldn't be surprised. Huge up wave, huge down up wave. Well, again, probably overpriced here, probably extremely undervalued here. That's just how it goes. I'm sorry. If you take this sector seriously, if you start believing the market's bullshit, if you can't cope with trolls showing up, I mean, most people, again, vast majority of people don't make any money. Take Clan, for example. Do you think this guy makes any money? I'm pretty sure he was positive up here, now it's become negative, and he still keeps coming back. And he's obsessed by FNM. No, this is not the sign of the best investors I know of. They don't even troll forums. Most of them don't post that much anyway. Do I feel bad for him if he's bought here because price was going up, everyone was feeling great and all that, and then this happens? Well, you would feel bad for him or any story, let's say, in tech story, if that's the end of it. I would feel sorry for myself if I bought every high and sold, let's say, every low I saw. But like Magna, which went way lower than I thought it was ever gonna do, let's take 5 years. I did not expect this to happen. I did not expect it to go from here to here. It did. And I said that at the time. In hindsight, I think people are probably gonna have the possibility of making even more in Magna by the stock doing this than if the stock did that. Why? Because you got months of time to buy it 40 to 50 cents, and now it's up at 171 just a year and a half later. So was this good or bad? That depends on what you did. Is this going to be good or bad? In the end, depends on what we do. Are there any guarantees? No. Do I think it's cheaper now than here? Yes. Do I think it might be do I think you'll do well if you buy up here, sell here, and then obsess and whine? No. If you buy here and sell here, you're never going to make any money anyway in any story, because even the most successful success stories are going to have 50% corrections, 40% corrections, 60% corrections. Great Bear had plenty of those. Lundin Gold had plenty of those. NGX. If you can buy dips in this sector, you should start doing something else. You have no chance, absolutely no chance. And we're seeing that in this sector, 95% do that. That's why it's like I tend to only bash Bitcoin when it's up, because I know it's closer to the next downswing, let's say. I don't really shit talk Bitcoin or too much when it's gone down 50-60%, because I wouldn't be surprised if it rallies later, and that I think has basically zero long-term value. But that's just how cycles and investing work. So these trolls, bashers, shit talking stocks, and that happens in almost every stock when it's gone down for several months, especially several years. But you won't see me typically bashing any companies that's off, let's say 50% from its 52 weeks lows, even if the story is not even intact in some cases. The sentiment is so bad usually that surprises can relatively easily come to the upside. Yes, and again, you know, I mean, how and everybody, you know, kind of gets, let's say, drawn into this. Where again, like the technical guy yesterday or 2 days ago, and it's like he might not even be a basher. It's like he's just a technical guy. It's like, you know, I see it coming down to, let's say, 25 cents or whatever, yada yada yada, and it's like if that's his playbook, then it's like fair enough. Yeah, so fair enough in that case. But then when we start talking like 27 cents, 36, 38 cents, like I really don't give a shit. I mean, if you need to be right on the if cents become important, you don't have a good case. My case is, I think First Nordic could be $1 billion plus story one day. Because I think Barsele alone, 100% owned, for example, is, if it was in production today, it would probably have at least $1.5 billion valuation. I mean, just think about it. We can do the quick and dirty. Let's say we take the Ventum. I think it was Ventum's analyst report. Let's say $3,400 gold minus, oh geez, $3,400 gold minus AUCU, let's say 1250. That's two, and then times 207,000 ounces of production. That's 445 million USD in ASIC margin. No guarantees that's gonna happen, but I think that could be the case if Barsele was in fact in production today, for example. And then what and Sweden has some of the lowest corporate tax of any Western mining jurisdiction. It would trade materially higher, even if it costs 500 million to buy that stream of ASIC margin, let's say. You would almost make it back every year, what you, in ASIC margin at least, what you put in to build the mine, and then you're gonna get your money back every year. So times 2 years ASIC margin, 1.5, etc., etc. And then you have the fact that if when Barsele is in production, I would expect down the line some of the satellite deposits, etc., come into play, and maybe you'll end up with a mining operation that spans 30 to 50 years. That's what I'm buying. That's the, well, I'm not saying I'm going to hold it for 30, 50 years, but that's the value, intrinsic value proposition I am buying today at 108 million CAD. But this is just something you have to get accustomed to. This stuff is going to show up in every single stock, pretty much, that has done like this. Not the case for Hydrograph, at least yet. Yeah, I guess I've seen Hydrograph. Somebody mentioned it to me when it was like 22 cents or something. I didn't pull a trigger. I was actually traveling, and I was gonna. I thought about it. I was encouraged to have a call with the CEO. Did not have it. Now it's up 15x or something. So I missed a 15x returner. And yeah, I don't know how much I would put in anyway. I mean, if I put in a small position, 15x, I mean, that's great. But if you put in 0.1% position, that's not material anyway. So I'm not going to say how much I actually missed, because I can't just look at this. I have to figure out what I would have been doing, how much would my conviction be and all that. But this is probably the hottest stock right now in the entire sector. And it started to run like crazy, and you can see all the halts, etc. Even though, yeah, no undisclosed. So before the recent news release, the last news release was 21st July, I think. 21st July. Then it was at 36 to 55 cents. And this is what happened since, on no news release that I can see. Except yesterday they got a new one. I have no horse in this race. One thing to note is, again, it's like sentiment right now is pretty insane. And I would, one word of caution, and I mean, you could consider me sour grapes, missed out and all that, and especially if this becomes like a multi-billion-dollar success, etc. I'm gonna have missed out even more. At the end of the day, maybe I missed out on the best stock in 40 years or something. That's not out of the possibility. I am not comfortable enough, since it's tech and all that, and I don't know enough about it. And I'm very nervous when I see sentiment this high. I'm just saying. I mean, you made probably people listening here might be up a shit ton. It's like, I haven't made any money, so you've been smarter than me. You can at least take that to the bank. That I made no money. I missed out on all this movement. I still think it's interesting again to collect, let's say, examples and think about how the market works. High sentiment cases, low sentiment cases. I've seen some news releases, not news releases actually. I've seen some headlines in newsletter sendouts with titles like, could Hydrograph become bigger than Nvidia, which is the highest valued company in the world? Could this be $1,000 or multi-$1,000 stock and all that? I mean, that is just at face value. That's some of the most extreme headlines I've come across in quite some time. And again, it's like, if you're really excited about, if you say something you personally believe in, then you're not lying, even if it might be the biggest pump anybody's ever seen, right? So I'm not gonna make a judgment on that. But one thing I would just note, because I have some experience with graphene, even though I don't understand it that much, but I remember, I think it was 2017, I was invested, I don't remember if I actually invested, but the thing was Integra Resources, their graphite mine, that Vittangi in northern Sweden. They were, I believe, in the cutting edge of graphene production, because they had figured out a way for their high grade, high purity graphite to shed into graphene. So that was the cutting edge way at the time of making graphene. That they could just put in graphite and they would get graphene out. But they needed their high purity graphite. That's what made it special. So they had at the time a competitive advantage for sure, because they had the commodity, the underlying commodity, which was their exceptional, the exceptional characteristics of their graphite to make graphene from. Then, I mean, I owned a stock called Graphene GMG. graphene, what's the name? Graphene Manufacturing Group. They came out with, they had an even better way of making graphene. They, if I remember correctly, they could pull it out of natural gas, and obviously there's no shortage of natural gas. So the volumes they could, the volumes could be immense, I guess, because there's no shortage of that source for the graphene. And that, I think, made kind of Talga's graphite way of doing graphene obsolete pretty quickly. I don't think Talga even is going the graphene route today because there's so many, developments into how to produce graphene. And now it seems that Hydrograph, for example, is another step of the graphene production. As far as I understand, they can make it ultra pure, ultra pure green, easy ingredients and all that. So it's basically, again, evolving the graphene production to their Hyperion. My point is that since it's technology by definition means change. Nvidia is the world's largest technology company. They still need to innovate at all times to stay the number one, right? That is why I have a hard time with technology companies, same with crypto, whatever, because I never know what's going to happen later. Because first came Bitcoin, then there's a million coins, whatever, and as people say, well, Bitcoin doesn't have the best tech, but it has the first mover advantage. Sure, that's right, if it's only sentiment and all that. Hydrograph might also have first mover advantage, if they sign a lot of contracts and all that. But I would not rule out that there's going to be even more advancements in graphene. It does seem that Hydrograph right now might have the most cutting edge, best way of making graphene. But if someone does it in a way that can scale it even higher, let's say, and or has whatever, comes up with some version of graphene that's even better for at least part of the use cases, for example, that's I would not be surprised if that happens. And I just had a bit of fun just asking ChatGPT to compare some stuff. Like this is the only real, I guess, relevant company that I know of. But I asked it for what are the different ways of graphene production, and there's 10 or 15 different ways that are being looked at and in development. So again, pointing out the horse race, let's say, which is tech, that something that was cutting edge, everybody wants to overtake you and all that. And apparently that, GMG's way of making it might be more applicable. It kind of reminds me, I guess, in a sense of Home Run, where it's like their femto laser technology of making high purity silica. The top of the line, the absolutely highest purity. If they can do it in a green way, and that works, and they can do it at scale, that's obviously, that's a step in advancement where they maybe don't use the acid and the dirty ways, how the companies now use high purity silica for the, what is it called? Chip industry, semiconductor industry. In that case, they might have a superior product and all that. It's greener, it's cheaper, etc., etc. And if they can scale that, that's kind of what Hydrograph version. But of course, graphene is much more sexy in the sense that the idea is that it could be used in so many applications, just not whatever semiconductors and stuff like that. That it's an actually with time that graphene will be maybe used in who knows how many. that is the fascinating thing, right? That's the blue sky thing. That's how you can, throw out trillions and all of that. But with that said, that is no guarantee, of course, and you don't know how the technology is going to evolve either. Um, you don't have like the commodity. If somebody comes up with an even better tech, I mean, you're kind of finished, perhaps in a sense. Or it might be in the case where I mean, Hydrograph, for example, is like exceptional purity and consistency, extremely low energy, environmentally friendly, with no solids or emissions. Feedstock is common gas. And graphene is like low cost, scalable, tunable graphene with low contaminants. So it's like, is this graphene better? Probably than what these guys produce, especially that it's greener and all that. But again, you never know when it's like bulk type stuff. It's like, take home runs, like if you put in, you get out the highest purity silica, that is kind of wasted in a lot of applications. It's not wasted where it's like you need that highest purity. But if you, I mean, you wouldn't fill a beach with 99.9999% silica. I mean, that's way overkill, right? I mean, you get pretty much the same. You get a beach if you used whatever low purity silica and all that. So I guess there's applications all that. So there might be also where it's like hydrograph is the top end, like where you actually need their exact high purity and whatever other characteristics. That might be like, that's their playground in a sense, where it's like there might be other techniques or something where it's like, well, we can make it cheaply and really in bulk, and we put it into paints or whatever. I don't even know all the use cases. I'm just saying, it's like I have no idea. Maybe Hydrograph becomes a multi-billion-dollar company. I would just point out again, it's like, well, don't sell. I mean, now I'm gonna feel super bad if somebody sells. Maybe I shouldn't even be talking about it. But it's like, if you own Hydrograph, you know this story much better than me, and go with your conviction, your instinct, and all that. I just think it's still interesting to think, especially when it's such a high sentiment case. I mean, I'm watching this just with fascination, just how it goes up, and of course I also have those fears. Like, what if it becomes this becomes $100 billion company or $1 trillion company and all that. And I'm not ruling anything out. I'm just, I guess, explaining where it's like, this is not my cup of tea, and especially with a run like this, on from here to here there's been no news out, so I don't see how anything could have fundamentally changed, except for maybe people finding out if it was indeed extremely undervalued, and all that. But that's a lot of revaluation, if you know what I mean, without news. I much more prefer to buy on a material change, in a sense. I don't prefer to pay up 10x when at face value nothing really has changed, except for people finding out how cheap it was. Then I kind of missed the opportunity from that sense. But I don't know. Maybe I have no idea what's going to happen in Hydrograph. I just know that it's insanely. The expectations are insanely high, and there's also going to be, as always, a lot of traders who love stories like this, because when you have that kind of, I mean, it's like when I talked about Emo going into the Emeritus going into the start of the trial, and I call it like, this is like retail crack. You have a set date, and that's when everybody's gonna get rich and all that. I think it was around here something. I mean, it's I mean, it's not the end of the world at all, and Emeritus might still, work out. I just used it as an example at the times. Like the sentiment is really, really high right now. Everybody expects to get reach quickly, and that's why everybody's getting in at that point in time. And obviously, what happened afterwards was that no, that was actually more close to the top, and it didn't. It actually went down after that. But the idea of really large, insane, quick profits, and that's what's appealing to crypto as well. Uh, and in this case, the twist here, for example, I mean, Emo Emeritus obviously has some kind of upper limit because they're dealing with like physical commodities and all that. Crypto has no limit and has no anchor because it has no business, Dogecoin or whatever. So it's purely a greater full trading scenario. Hydrograph has a business concept underneath it, so it's not like there's nothing there, and their tech is cutting edge. But yeah, that's I mean those combinations, I guess, like this 10x run up on no news that I could see. That just tells me that okay, it's getting appreciated a lot more. Even if the case was intact, I obviously would have wanted to buy the same case at 22 cents than at $2.84, for example. So I feel like I'm not, by definition, I'm not one who found out how cheap it was early or acted on it. So when I'm this late, it just immediately makes me not want to buy. But it's still, I have no idea, maybe this becomes a really large company. That's the thing. I don't know. I'm not staying out because I think it's going to go down. I'm staying out because I miss the sentiment or appreciation or evaluation, and just with my experience of seeing graphene companies basically become cutting edge and then someone else overtakes them, and all of a sudden you have a complete change again. But right now, I mean, their tech looks absolutely fantastic, etc. How is that going to translate over the long term? I don't know. I mean, I have very low probability of it becoming a $1 trillion story, and that they have a monopoly on all graphene production. That I think has a almost zero chance of happening, simply because it's a technology, and I don't know how many companies out there are working on coming up with one that's just slightly better in some way. But it's sure interesting, and I hope you are a lot of you have made money on it, and if you still hold it, I hope you're gonna make even more money. I don't expect to. I haven't made any money on this, and I might be looking even more stupid for not buying it here in the future. Again, I don't know, but like I said with my value investing rants here, it's like I have to stick to my guns. Buying stuff that I understand cheap is pretty much my entire focus, and that works and has worked, and I expect it to keep working. So if I just jumped in here without knowing much and all that, and I have no possible way of seeing what this business is going to be in 10 years, whereas like a gold mine or a gold business, I can have a pretty good idea that a tier 2 deposit is probably a tier 2 deposit in 10 years. That's within my circle of competence. There's not enough unknowables in a sense, but it sure is exciting and sure fun to see some people make money. And it's like I have to train myself to also be, what do you call, like, not jealous or what the hell is the word? I can't come up with a word, but it's like not getting pissed off, let's say, because somebody else is making money, and I mean, some of my highest conviction stories, they've gone down in price. yeah. So no, but other than that, I mean, I haven't seen something like this in a long time. It's pretty breathtaking, and yeah, maybe it comes a behemoth. I don't know. So I hope nobody gets offended by hearing my 2 cents, and you can rest assured that I don't know this story well enough to make any sort of judgment one way or the other. And maybe, just maybe, you get something out of it, and maybe even increase your conviction, let's say, because I'm missing something. And again, uh, you know, please don't throw shit at me for commenting on the story. I'm not saying it's gonna go down. I'm not calling a top. This might be one of the largest companies in the world one day. I'm not saying that. I'm just explaining why I can't. Why this is not my cup of tea, and I'm gonna miss 99% of all 10 and 100 baggers anyway. So this might be one of many. Yeah. Anyway, I think it's interesting. I mean, regardless of how this story is, I think it's, again, as always. I mean, it's good to try to learn something. From it. I mean, if you're involved with the stock, or if you are a holder, like, see all the different stages of feed and greed, and maybe you're gonna get a lot out of it. Maybe in addition to, let's say, making a lot of money. Just to see how things, how sentiment works, how narrative works. And I even saw Rick Rule comment that this is one for the ages in terms of a textbook of social media promotion. And of course people got pissed off because they took it as he meant that it's just promotion and nothing there. But I don't think that's what he was saying. He was just making a, I mean, obviously anybody can see how the sentiment is here, which is very high, and it's still fascinating to see. So yeah, good luck to everyone of us out all there. I mean, again, it's like I right now. I mean, in some of my personal portfolios, it's not been a stellar year. I think a lot of you probably have beaten me. I don't have any stock like this in my portfolio right now. I'm hoping I might have a few going forward, but it's a marathon, not a sprint. So I just keep sticking to my guns and keep, hopefully, value shuffling and adding to cheap stuff, and sooner or later they're gonna revalue closer to fair value, and I'll make some money. Thanks for listening. Consider me biased, not investing advice, not buy or sell recommendations. Some companies I mentioned are banner sponsors, twice biased. I don't own Hydrograph Clean Power, so that by definition means I'm biased against it. Any stock I own, I'm biased for. I mean, it just goes without saying. So again, final note: I am not making no buy or sell recommendation on especially Hydrograph. I don't know it well enough. If you own it, you probably know it a lot better than me, and should not put much weight on what I say. Yeah, thanks for listening. Bye, guys.